Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Game of Gymnastics Podcast. This week I'm going to be going through the changes to the code outlined in the new newsletter posted by the FIG and what it will mean for routines going forwards. I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Game of Gymnastics Podcast. This week is going to be a little bit different because we have had some news. We have had a new newsletter from the FIG, specifically concerning men's artistic gymnastics. So I'm going to be going through that, some of the changes that are going to be happening to the code of points, and some things that are some good, some bad, and some just interesting. I'll be going through them today, giving you my takes on what that all means and what it could mean for your own routines. And yeah, we'll go from there. It starts off with just preamble, essentially, talking about what they want to do in the next cycle, and then thanking people for doing the Bravo course, or thanking the people that hosted the Bravo courses, Bravo judging courses. Yeah, so talking about the World Challenge Cups and World Cups, all that sort of thing. And then we go on to the actual changes. So here we have, well, to start with, tension gauge. Essentially, you have to have both on rings and on high bar the tension between 1,000 newtons and 5,000 newtons. 5,000 is ridiculously tight and 1,000 is pretty loose. So I'm sure that won't affect too many people, but I know on the looser side, like on the under 1,000 side, I think that could potentially be an issue. But it's unlikely. It's just so it's safer, I assume. Next, so going straight into it with the biggest probably change with the floor, because there's multiple changes here as well. There's a bit of preamble about why they've changed it. And then essentially it goes straight into it with, you don't absolutely have to do a one leg balance anymore, which is perfect. I'm really happy about it. You don't have to do it. You can do either a one leg balance or you can do one of the following skills. You can see them on screen here. So you can see exactly which skills, and you can look them up in the code of points. They're very simple to find. Like, for example, like pike back to front support, which is endo, I think. Other than the high bar skill, which is also called endo. And then, yeah, there's a bunch more. Some of which I don't understand how people could possibly do, like butterfly with double twist. I tried with full, was not happening. Like, we tried a couple of these skills at a national training camp relatively recently. And I don't know how many people could do the butterfly with full twist, but the only person I saw was Jack Stanley, and I don't know how in any way, shape or form you could possibly get another twist in there. But it's in the code, so you can do it. Jump forward full turn to front support, that's going to be a popular one, I think. Because if you already do cartwheel, dive roll down the side, and you just need to get to front support, then you can just do jump full turn into support, and then that's that requirement ticked off already. But another one that will also be quite popular is potentially dive roll with full twist or stag leap with full turn, which is... my assumption is that will become the normal. We'll have to wait and see to see exactly what happens. But there's a couple changes there. So jump backward to front support. That specifically means essentially flick to support. So that's not an especially hard one. And then same thing with jump backward with pike stretch or with full twist to front support. So that's full turn to handstand lower to front support, or pike back to handstand to front support. The reason I say to handstand to front support is because it says further down here, the gymnast must land on the hands and lower to the front support with control. So you have to land in handstand, then lower to front support. It doesn't have to be like planche lower, but just as long as you're not like smacking onto the floor, then it should be fine. Butterfly with full twist backward or forward. It's hard to explain what that is without knowing what a butterfly is, but just know it's quite hard. Butterfly with double twist, don't know how that's going to be possible. Jump forward with full turn to front support. ENF, so jump forward with full turn to front support, jump backward with 1.5 turn to front support, and jump forward with double twist to front support. They should be relatively self-explanatory. You literally jump with a full turn, do a quarter of a rotation, and land in front support. It's relatively simple, but I can't find them on the code, so they might be new additions because currently they're not there. I've looked at the exact numbers that they say they should be on, and can't find them. Jump full with half turn to momentary handstand. I think that's a new addition because currently it's not on there. So I'm not sure whether this is just a newsletter or will actually be added on to the code at some point. Maybe they'll do a new version. I'm not sure. Dive roll with full twist. I'll try and find that one actually. So that will be a B. So not necessarily worth it because it will just go right next to dive roll in the code. Based on these numbers, you can actually tell exactly what value they'll be as well. And then stag leap with full turn, again, is not in the code currently, but it'll probably be an A. Note, currently butterfly is there. Currently butterfly is in the place where stag leap with full turn is supposedly meant to be going. Not sure. 3, a gymnast must start his exercise with an acrobatic tumbling pass, not with a non-acrobatic element. A lot of people have been starting their routines with a single leg balance rather than doing it in the middle of the routine, which is against what they wanted. So they've now changed it so that you have to start with a tumbling pass. Technically, you had to start with a counting tumbling pass, but because the one leg balance didn't have to count, it didn't matter. Now you actually have to start with a tumble, like a tumbling pass. Otherwise, a 0.3 deduction will be taken. So another thing that they're trying to really get into is choreography and making the routines flow nicely. So choreographic leaps and turns should be used into corners, essentially. But they want them to be different and actually have some form of artistry, because a lot of what people have been doing in the last few years, it doesn't look like they're trying very hard when they're jumping into the corners, which is fair. I'm not going to bash anyone for that, because what you're doing in a floor routine is you're trying to save energy for the big tumbles. So it's not a bad thing that people are trying to not so much cut corners, but kind of, but it's just playing to the code. But now you get deducted if you do simple steps with or without a half turn, or a choreographic leap, which doesn't have extension or amplitude. So if you're not in enough of a split, or if you're not high enough in a jump, that could be stag leap. But I don't think they're expecting us to be in full split, because that's less of what men's has ever been. It's normally have to do it at an angle, but get to as much of a split as possible, essentially, is normally what they go for. But also, beginning 1st January 2026, they actually say right there, if you're on the audio only, they actually say specifically, beginning Winston Powell's 21st birthday. It's a neat little touch. All corner transitions must be different or will attract a 0.3 deduction from D jury. So I didn't know this until I read this morning. This came out a little bit before I've actually gone through this, but Luke, my coach, talked briefly about this to me. I'm sure he won't mind me saying about how difficult it will be for judges, because they have to not only keep track of what specific tumbles that they're doing, like D jury specifically, they have to track not only what tumbles you're doing now, but also what transitions you're doing into the corners every single time you do one. And that's one less than the amount of tumbles that you're doing. So they're doing not double the work, but a significant amount more than they already were doing. And it's already difficult. So I don't know how that's going to work exactly, because it's going to be just difficult. But it also says, in order to gain consistency and simplify judging across the apparatus from the 1st of January 2026, the D jury will first count the dismount before then counting the next 7 highest elements, which is good because you don't have to worry about the potentially low value dismount taken out by high value other skills, but realistically you should be doing a high value dismount anyway, or high-ish, because it's a double somersault. So C is the absolute lowest, and if you've got only Ds in the rest of your routine, then I don't know why you'd be doing a C dismount. But if that affected anyone, then that's a good thing. But it's just what's happened, really.
Hey guys, Winston here. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, please do leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you can. Also, if you want more gymnastics content from me, you can check out my Instagram at wpowell05 or my TikTok at winstonpowell5. Thank you, and let's get back to the episode.
Spindle to handstand. It says to be recognised as one individual element. The spindle must be performed within a maximum of 2 circles. That was true anyway for elements number 93 and 100. Flare with greater than 270 degree spindle in 2 circles directly to handstand. That's what it is. Flare with 260 degree spindle in 2 circles directly to handstand to continue to circle or flare. Okay. The rule is further clarified that the gymnast does not have to achieve the third front support position because they will be rising to handstand during that phase. I really can't tell what's changed here. If that affects you, then maybe let me know in the comments, but I really have no idea how this actually changes things, because I knew in spindle you had to do it in a maximum of two circles, so 3 front support positions from the start position. So I don't actually know what's changed, because in the code of points, they are already recognized as one individual element. Manner and V-sit. These deductions seem harsh. I can't tell though. I don't do a manner. I don't do V-sit. So I can't tell. I also can't tell what line that leg's meant to be deducted from, because it says perfect manner is there, but part of the heel is within the 0.1 deduction range. So do they do it from the toes? Do they do it just from the line of the leg? It's hard to tell. But if you're anything short of perfect on those, you get a 0.1 deduction, and the margins are very, very small. But I suppose that it kind of needs to be like that, because you only really do V-sit or manner if you can really do V-sit or manner. So it makes sense. On to pommels now. Scissor elements. So I thought this was the case already, but I think it's just to clarify, potentially. But any sort of interruption by the leg on the pommel while you're doing a shear element is a 0.5 deduction and non-recognition. I thought that was already the case. I thought it was like even harsher than that. There's a few examples on the video, even where it seems relatively minimal. But if it's just a scrape and it's an ever so slight, like just slowing, then it's only a 1/10. But if it clearly shows that you're stopping the leg on the pommel and it stops the movement, then that becomes the 5/10 deduction. So just be wary of that. Sewn to 1. May be performed to either cross support or side support. So the side support is the thing that's changed. So normally when you're doing sewn to 1, you have to do a circle afterwards. But now you can do it into the start of a Stockley or Russian, essentially. But other than that, it's still the same thing. It's just that you don't technically have to do it into a circle now. You can just start the flop straight away. So if you wanted to do the circles after the Russians or not do any circles at all, granted, if you do that, the value of the skill would be slightly less, then you can do it that way. Rings. There are 5 elements which fulfill the swing to handstand requirement. Most of these are the same, but I think potentially the only differences are from support swing to handstand, Homma swing to handstand, and Homma straight swing to handstand. So those are just from support rather than from hang. That's the only difference. I'll be honest, rings is really not my strong suit in terms of especially knowing what the code is. There is a change on vault, but that's covered later, and it's just a skill being added. That's all. Gatson style elements. This is, in my mind, one of the craziest changes that they've done. Because I don't know how this is even like, I get how it's possible, but it seems like ridiculous and that basically no one's going to do Gatson anymore. In my head, I can't see people like properly committing to this now. Because from support or upper arm, swing backwards, hop 3/4 full turn or 1.5 turn to handstand must be performed with flight. That was already pretty much true. So these include elements 282, 283, 284, and 141. I swear they've been referring to skills a lot where I just cannot find them in the code. I don't know if I've got an outdated version or what. Gatson is here. So swing backwards, hop 3/4 to handstand. That was already kind of true. I think what they're trying to do is so you've got hop half on P-bars, which some people have done. Like it's a C, so it's somewhat worth it sometimes. And it replaces a pirouette, which is quite good. Hop 3/4, which is the natural progression, and you go onto the outside rail. So you're facing away from the other rail when you're in that handstand. And then I think what they're trying to do is get Gatson 1 and Gatson 2 to be just natural progressions to that. So what they're saying is that you have to perform at least a 3/4 turn in flight before the first hand goes on. So I can understand why they've done it, but I also think that that's going to be so difficult. Because what most people do to learn Gatson is they do hop quarter, and then they do the rest of the turn on the one arm. Or at the very least, that's what I've seen. And they maybe get the half turn round before they put the hand down when they've gotten it really good. But it almost becomes a different skill when you have to do an extra quarter before, especially when it's just a full turn. And I think Gatson 2 is going to be so difficult if half the turn has to be completely off the P-bars. But, I mean, that's just what the code says. I suppose it makes sense in terms of the natural progression of skills, but I think that's still very, very difficult. I mean, you can make of it what you will. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm giving you a bunch of call to actions, but I feel like there's a lot that can be talked about in this. Let me know what you thought about any of these changes, really. Whether you agree, disagree. I'm happy to hear, because this is all very new, and this is all them just sort of changing, switching around, and trying new things, which I think is really good that they do that. I think it's really good that the sport evolves like this, essentially by trial and error. Okay, so horizontal bar. There's a couple changes here. Or, to be fair, the start of the exercise thing, this is what I always thought it was. But now I think they're just being a bit more strict with it. So you have to start from basically nothing. And then you can start the swings. So if you start from dead static, then you've got 1, 2, 3 to then get over the bar on the fourth. If you start by jumping up, for example, this will be very, very difficult for you to do, because you're naturally going to be starting by swinging a little bit, like only a tiny bit, but you will be swinging a little bit. They will count those as the swings. So you could get an extra 2 free swings in your routine, and you're already marked down just because you started by jumping up. So either you jump up straight into the start of the swings, or you get chucked up, start completely static, and then start. I think that a lot of people will just jump up and then immediately go into the body shaper, is what I think a lot of people will do, rather than, because I know a lot of people faff around with how their grip is, and because a lot of people start mixed. That's the only reason I'm doing it like this. So not a lot of people faff around like that for just a forward and a backward swing. I know I would if I jumped up, which is why I don't. So, yeah, you just got to be a bit more careful with it, that's all.
If you're like me, you struggle with rips on your hands, seemingly at the worst possible times, like in a competition prep, for example. I'm proud to partner with Wad & Dunn, who have a solution for us gymnasts to help us train and protect our hands in the process. I especially recommend their rip guards for apparatus using grips or guards, whatever you want to call them, high bar, rings or A-bars, and their 3-step hand care kit to make sure your handles are strong and rip resistant without making them soft. Use my code POWEL at checkout, or my link in the description for 10% off at checkout. Now, back to the episode.
So grip changes. Again, I think this is already in the code, but I think they may just be clarifying because this is what I always thought it was. So if you end up at the end of a skill in mixed, so say it's a Zulamin or a squat full, Adler full, do they call it, then if you change the other hand into undergrasp, then you lose a 10th. If you do another giant in mixed and then change, then it's non-deduction. Specifically for the hand movements, not specifically for the skills. So you have to be just quite careful with when you're changing your hands. If you do squat full straight to undergrasp, then it's fine. If you do squat full to mixed and then do a giant, then change, then it's fine. But if you do squat full to mixed and then immediately change your hand in handstand, then it's a 10th. If you do, say, the start of your exercise in two hands over grasp, then you go over the top of the bar, change both hands, that's a 10th because you've changed more than one. Essentially, the first hand would be just like a skill landing in mixed, and then the second hand is the extra hand placement. But yeah, if you do an extra giant afterwards, then it's fine. Uprise backward to free hip circles. So if you start your routine, another thing to do at the start of the routines, into a clear circle, you just have to be careful about how high you're swinging and how high your arms are above the bar. If your arms, that's from your hands to your shoulders, make a line that is above 45 degrees above the line of the bar, then a 3/10 deduction for reversing the swing. If, by contrary, you are lower than 45 degrees, which is, I saw in that video, looks very low. You have to be very careful with it, because if you're like borderline, or if you think you're close, then you're going to be over, because it's very hard to stay under from what I saw. It's not impossible though. People do it all the time. I also already thought that this was the case, but so Gaylord and Gaylord 2, salto backward with a half turn over the bar, which is what I would call Gaylord, which is tucked Kovac, but with half turn, and Gaylord 2, which is what I would call straight Gaylord, which is the exact same thing but in straight, are considered Kovac style flight elements. So exactly what I already thought, because you initiate it the exact same way. But that's just when applying it to the special repetition rule, where you can't do same sort of flight element. Also, this is new. 5 flight elements. The gymnast may perform a 5th flight element among the 7 counting elements if at least 2 flights are directly connected. This is not if you connect squat half to a flight element, or like an in-bar skill to a flight element, but it is if you connect a flight to a flight. Minimum CC, which is most things, but like I think it's just trying to stop people from doing like flying giant into something like that. The only B release I can think of is, I think, Pipe Markelov, which is where you swing backwards over the bar and then literally just like do a little pike over the bar while you do a half turn and then catch in overgrasp the other side as well. So, and I don't know how anyone would connect anything from that anyway. So, but yeah, you can do a 5th flight element if you connect to 2 flights. But that still has to align with the special repetition rule, where you can't do 2 of the same type of release. So if you did, for example, Kovac connected to Coleman, you can do a 5th flight element, but it couldn't be Cassina, for example. It couldn't be, another Kovac style release. New elements. So there's one on Pommel, which is sewn to one Biznari, is what I would call it, but that's now the more. Olfati, this is the one change on Vault. It is so difficult and so impressive that someone's done it. Yurchenko into full in back out is insane. And that's a 5-6. Now, same as Reese-Guam. And then the Hall. James Hall competed this at Doha World Cup. Straddle front with a half turn. It's relatively simple to understand. Here's the appendix with all the skills that weren't in the actual code. That seems impossible. Butterfly with double twist seems just genuinely impossible. But yeah, if you're on the YouTube video, then this is great. This is a great visual aid for you because you can see exactly the skills that you want to see. For example, the endo, which is the pike back to front support. Jump forward with half turn to momentary handstand. Oh my God. It looks like you genuinely have to do essentially a side flip. Like a side somersault into a handstand. That's what it looks like, because it looks like the legs are going around the side. It doesn't look like they're coming backwards. It says here, stag leap with full turn. I can't tell whether you're supposed to do it standing to standing, like it shows here pretty much, or if you do it into a corner. So I hope that's cleared things up. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is going to be a very much a mags, like actual like gymnasts and coaches and potentially even judges thing to be talking about. So I do apologize for the lack of easy terminology to understand, but I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this gives you something to think about in terms of the skills, in terms of the start, especially on high bar, and in terms of the construction of your floor routines, because you're going to think about how many times you land backwards, how many times you land forwards, coming into the new year, because if you do a stag leap forwards and a stag leap backwards, that's two different skills, but you can't do two stag leap forwards. It's something to think about, but I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what sort of things you want me to talk about in the future. I'm working on something new, something a little bit different, so you've got that to look forward to. It's a bit more like this, a bit more like informative sort of thing, but this was just me like running through it and giving my thoughts. The next one will be a bit more cut and dry, like hopefully a few less tangents in it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Game of Gymnastics Podcast. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.